Good day, everyone. We are the Group 6, and we are here to report about the deontological ethics.
Deontological ethics or duty ethics. So what is deontological ethics? Deontological ethics is a moral theory that judges whether an action is right or wrong based on rules, duties, or principles, not on the consequences of the action. The term came from the Greek word deon or duty and logos for reasoning. In simple terms, deontological ethics is a moral theory that focuses on the inherent rightness or wrongness of actions themselves, rather than their consequences. It suggests that certain duties or rules should be followed regardless of the outcome. For example, a deontologist might argue that lying is always wrong, even if it could lead to a positive result, because lying itself violates a moral duty. As an example, imagine a situation where a friend asks you to lie to their parents about where they were last night. So in the ontological approach, a deontologist would likely argue that lying is inherently wrong regardless of the consequences. Their duty is to be truthful, and breaking that duty would be morally incorrect, even if it means your friend might get into trouble with their parents. The action of lying itself is the focus, not the outcome. In contrast, a consequentialist approach like utilitarianism might consider the outcome. If lying prevents your friend from getting grounded and doesn't cause significant harm, a consequentialist might argue it's the better choice because it leads to a more positive outcome. The core difference is that deontology prioritizes the moral duty or rule, like don't lie, above the potential consequences of the actions. So in short, deontology is do the right thing because it's your duty regardless of the outcome. Kant's moral philosophy in deontological ethics. Immanuel Kant was born in 1724 and died in 1804. Is one of the most influential figures in moral philosophy. His ethical system is deontological, meaning it is grounded in duty and moral rules rather than consequences. Kant's philosophy is powerful because it insists that morality is about principles and respect for persons, not just producing good outcomes. Here's a simple breakdown. Our core idea is that morality is based on universal principles that apply to everyone, regardless of personal desires or consequences. He called this principle categorical imperatives, or the unconditional rules, as opposed to hypothetical imperatives, or the rules that depend on a specific goals. The key categorical imperative formulation is the act only according to. So, let's use the lying premise example of Kant himself often referenced. So, suppose you need money desperately and know you can't pay it back. You're tempted to tell someone, I'll definitely repay you next month, even though you have no intention of doing so. Let's apply the first categorical imperative. Ask, what if everyone made lying promises whenever they needed something? If this became a universal law, no one would trust promises anymore. Promises as concept would cease to exist. Since you can consistently will this to be universal, the lying promise is immoral. As they say, promises are meant to be broken. Now, we're going to apply the second formulation. By making a lying promise, you're treating the lender merely as a means to get money, rather than respecting them as a rational being who deserve the truth and the chance to make their own informed decision. This violates the duty to treat people with inherent worth. So here's another simple example. Suicide. Kant argued that willing a universal law where everyone takes their own life when suffering would contradict the natural drive to preserve life, making it immoral. He also held that suicide treats one's own humanity as a mere means to escape pain, rather than as an end itself.
Good will in deontological ethics. According Immanuel Kant, deontological ethics, goodwill is the foundation of morality. For him, the only thing that is truly good without qualifications is a good will, not intelligence, wealth, or even happiness, because those can be used for bad purposes. So in Kant's deontological ethics, goodwill, doing the right thing, simply because it is right. Example, returning a lost phone even if no one is watching. The categorical imperative. According to Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative is the cornerstone of his deontological moral philosophy. It is a principle that tells us how to determine whether an action is morally right based on duty and universal rules rather than consequences. In short, the categorical imperative is Kant's way of ensuring that morality is rational, universal, and rooted in respect for human beings. For example, following school rules even when the teacher is not around. Respecting others because everyone deserves respect.
Kant's three main formulation. Formula of universal law. Act only according to that maximum whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Example, if you consider lying, ask could everyone lie all the time? If not, lying is immoral. Formula of humanity as an end itself. Act so that you treat humanity whether in your own person or in that of another always as an end and never merely as a means. Example, exploiting someone for personal gain is wrong because it uses them as a tool rather than respecting their dignity. Formula of the kingdom of ends. Act as if you were legislating universal moral laws in a community of rational beings. Example, imagine a society where everyone follows the same moral rules you choose. Would it be just unrespectful? Deontological ethics. By Rose and Prima Facie Duties, philosopher W.D. Rose, he born on 1877 and he died 1971, developed a version of deontological ethics that emphasizes prima facie duties, moral obligations that are binding unless they conflict with an equal or stronger duty. His approach is more flexible than Kant's strict rules, allowing for moral judgment when duties clash. WD rules are moral obligations that are binding at first glance or on the face of it, such as keeping promise, fidelity, or preventing harm. Non-maleficent, they are not absolute when duties conflict, but the most stringent one becomes the actual binding duty. In that situation, synonyms includes conditional duties, moral obligation of at first glance. For example, prima facie duties, Latin for at first sight, are self-evident, initial moral obligations that are binding unless overridden by a more pressing duty, proposed by W.D. Rose. These 7 duties, including fidelity, reparation, and non-injury help navigate conflicting ethical situations where the most compelling duty becomes our actual.
So there are 7 prima facie duties. First is fidelity duties, means keeping promises. Second is reparation, means making up for wrongdoings. Third is gratitude, means returning a favor. Fourth is non-maleficence, means avoiding injuring others. Fifth means justice, means fair distribution of happiness. Sixth, beneficence, means improving conditions of others. Sixth, the last one, self-improvement, means making yourself better. Right-based moral theory is a branch of deontological ethics that emphasizes the inherent right and freedom of individuals rather than duties alone, while traditional deontology like Kant's focuses on moral duties and rules. Right-based approaches argue that morality is grounded in the recognition and protection of human rights. Comparison of deontology versus right-based ethics aspects. So deontology or duty-based focuses on duty, rules, and obligations, while right-based ethics focuses on individual rights and freedoms. So the foundation of deontology is moral laws, while right-based ethics the foundation is concept of inherent rights or natural or legal. Then moral evaluation. So deontology is focused on intention and adherence to duty, while right-based respects for and protection of rights. Example of deontology: do not lie because it violates duty, while right-based ethics don't lie because it violates the person's right to truth. So right-based moral theory, why it matters? Right-based moral theory provides a robust safeguard against the exploitation, ensuring that individuals are not sacrificed for collective outcomes. It complements duty-based deontology by shifting the lens from what we thought to do to what people are entitled to.